Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. My name is John Campea. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and this is our special pregame show for Loki Episode 5, which comes out a little bit later tonight, which we also affectionately refer to around here as Game Day. Yeah, it's game day today. Loki's on tonight. Super excited about it. Cannot wait to get into this thing. Last week's episode, now you guys will remember. I was not a big fan, I guess to say the least, of of episode 3. I wasn't the biggest fan of episode 3, but episode 4 came along, and I said this during our episode 3 thing. I said during episode 3, I said, you know what? It just makes me more hyped for episode 4 because I know they're going to have a lot of stuff that they're going to need to cover. I know there's a lot of stuff we're going to get to. I know it's going to be great. And then episode 4 came out, and it was awesome. It was fantastic. And now we're just 2 episodes left. 2 episodes left. So we are here to talk about today what our speculation is, what our theories are, what we are expecting from Loki episode 5 tonight, what we think we're going to see, what we think we're not going to see, what we hope we see, what we hope we don't see, all that kind of good stuff. Now, that said, I want to make sure, everybody, that don't say things too loud, because Santa Dorff may see that we're kind of excited and celebrating and have the audacity to be excited about some comic book show. We don't want him to get in the press and tell everybody he's embarrassed for us for liking this shit. So just let's be excited, but let's not get too excited because, you know, Santa Dorff is always watching. Anyway, very excited for tonight. I cannot wait. So I want to spend most of today, pretty much all of today's show, just basically taking what you guys have to say. Now, of course, in these special videos, if you want to submit a comment or thought or question to be read on the show, you do not use the tip link that's down in the description. The tip link is for the John Campea Show. When we're doing these special videos, if you want to get in a comment that I read on the show, simply use the YouTube super chat feature, and that's how we keep them separated and distinct from each other. So, looking forward to tonight. Cannot wait. It is game day, and I am so excited. Okay, so here's my one basic theory. Now, we've seen some advertising stuff. We've seen some advertising stuff that has shown like this Loki pocket limbo universe that he's in, that apparently is like all filled with Lokis. It looks like, to some degree, maybe yes, maybe no. It looks like maybe people who get pruned all get sent to their own individual thing. And we've been seeing some cool stuff. Obviously, we're going to get more Richard E. Grant tonight in the classic Loki. By the way, give me a show all day of Elizabeth Olsen in the classic Scarlet Witch costume that she had in the Halloween episode, and of Richard E. Grant in the classic, in that classic Loki outfit. Give me that all day. Give me that all day. As cheesy and as corny and as dumb as they look, I am eating them up because those are comic accurate costumes. And it just kind of reminds us we shouldn't want comic actual costumes. But listen, I'll tell you one other thing. A friend of mine got a hold of me because a buddy of mine watches my videos too. And we did the Loki after show, the spoiler discussion last week. And he got a hold of me and said, "Hey, John, did you notice that when Mobius goes in and gets Loki out of his like little circular time loop with Lady Sif, and he goes and tells Loki, you were right about everything, you were right about the TVA, and you can be a good person, don't let anybody tell you otherwise," because he himself told him he couldn't be earlier. He said, "Did you notice that at the end of that conversation, just before they go through the little temp pad portal, Mobius says to Loki, 'Do you trust me? Do you trust me?'" Kind of indicate, because I'll be honest with you, that one little line that Mobius says to Loki, "Do you trust me?" kind of went over my head a little bit. I was still caught up in the other parts of the conversation they were having. And that part when he says, "Do you trust me?" that went over my head a bit. But my buddy kind of suggested to me, I think that was Mobius basically telling Loki he's got a plan and that he needs to trust him. And follow me here, that maybe going through that portal, Mobius knew that Ravonna was going to be waiting out there and that Ravonna would have Loki and him both pruned. And that's all a part of Mobius's plan. And at first, I was like, oh, come on, that's a bit of a stretch. But then I went back and I watched that one scene again. And like, Owen Wilson was like, really, he's like, do you trust me? Because almost as if to say, there's going to be some wackiness. It's going to feel weird. Maybe it's going to be odd. I mean, this sounds like the first time I had sex. Anyway, there's going to be awkwardness. It's going to feel a little bit weird, and maybe something unexpected. But do you trust me because I know what I'm doing is kind of the implied message. And then as soon as he says that, they step through the portal, and sure enough, Ravonna's there and they get pruned, right? So I had just gone on thinking, oh, wow, what are they going to do now? And they're going to have to find a way. But what if this was all a part of Mobius's plan? Then Mobius knew they would get pruned. He wanted to get pruned because he knows what happens once they get pruned, unlike the rest of us. Not, all of us thought pruned means getting killed. And it turns out that wasn't the case. So it's going to be interesting to see if that plays itself out tonight. I expect we're going to see President Loki tonight. I still don't know if this pocket limbo that Loki is in right now, if it is all just Loki's or if it's all the Lokis are there plus some other people as well. Not totally sure. We will find out. I do expect we're going to see Mobius tonight. I don't know if he's going to play a big role. I'm expecting probably a pretty small role, but I do expect we're going to see him at some point. Anyway, I'm just very excited, especially after last week's episode. Big questions remaining. Who is behind the Timekeepers? Is Ravonna a villain? Did she know that the Timekeeper androids were puppets? Or is she just really a believer? She just really believes in the mission of the TVA and she's been misled. These are some big questions. How is Loki going to get out of this Loki pocketverse limbo? How is Mobius going to get back to him? All these things are big questions. We only got 2 episodes left to go, and I'm very, very excited. So let's now go and spend the rest of today doing the important stuff, which is taking your questions, your observations, your thoughts, your speculations, your machinations, your foreseeing knowledge of the future of what we're going to get in Loki tonight. Because again, ladies and gentlemen, today is game day and I'm super stoked for it. I hope you got the barbecue going. I hope you're tailgating out with your buddies. I hope the adult beverages have already started flowing. Drink responsibly, everybody. And I hope we're having a good time. So let's get into it right now and start getting to your guys' questions. All right, James Argenta is first one up. He says, I think the Lokis are trapped in Renslayer's trophy, similar to Kang's city of Chronopolis from the comics. Could be second snow globe in her office, or a little bit like Brainiac as well, collecting like he's got that Kryptonian city. I don't think so. Now, it's not that Ravonna couldn't be part of that, but I think the pruning really sends everybody to their own pocket universes. I don't think a snow globe is part of it, but I mean, they did make a big deal out of that snow globe in that episode, and then we haven't come back to it yet. I thought the callback was just that a different Mobius had given it to her. Maybe yes, maybe no. But that's something we'll keep our eyes open for, James. Good thought. Okay, next up, Casey McNatt writes, do you think before going back to the TVA, both Mobius and Loki discussed a plan off screen, knowing that when they went back to the TVA, there was a chance they were going to get pruned? Well, here's the thing. I was just talking about that, but here's the problem. When you go back and watch the episode, Mobius does say, do you trust me? Yes. But then immediately he taps the pad, opens the portal, and they walk right through. So there really wasn't a lot of time in there given, any time given, for Mobius to explain whatever plan he did have in mind to Loki. He just said, do you trust me? Yes. All right. Opens the portal and they walk through. So we'll see where they go with that, Casey, because he clearly didn't have any time to explain any plan he had to Loki. All right. Entertain Nerd Studios writes, freaking game day. Theories. Number 1, Kang, or 2, another Loki. 3, Ms. Minutes. I'm telling you, it's not Ms. Minutes. I know a lot of people like to think is Ms. Minutes. There she is. There's Ms. Minutes. I think she's looking at me kind of shifty. I don't like the way she's looking at me. It's like she's getting ready to prune me or something, and not in a fun way. So I don't really trust her, but I really don't think it's Ms. Minutes at all. I don't think Ms. Minutes is a part of it whatsoever. I don't even think we're going to see Ms. Minutes again, to be honest with you. But anyway, overall, can't wait. for everything to happen with Mobius. Maybe he visits Egypt and we see Ramatut Kang. Maybe yes, maybe no. But yes, again, I still think the two primary possibilities, although there are others, I still think the two primary possibilities are that the person behind the fake timekeepers is either Kang or another Loki variant. Could be a third one. We'll see where that goes, Entertain Nerd. Thanks for writing that in, man. All right, Max Cohen writes, I think Sylvie hasn't been running her whole life. I think she got pruned and was raised by the Loki Council. She escaped and is running from them. Maybe, but that hasn't been... I mean, that's not a bad thought, Max. But as far as I can remember, that wasn't really mentioned. That wasn't at all hinted at in the show. It seemed to me like the implied message was she has literally been on the run her whole life. Like she got away from the TVA and has been running ever since. I mean, I could be mistaken about that, but that seems to be. But listen, if they say it's the other way, like you're saying, we'll remember that you said that, man. All right, next up, Dylan Foreman writes, hey, John, I believe that Loki/Sylvie is older than the TVA. I believe the TVA was created when Sylvie was a child, and that is why she wasn't taken until then. Thoughts? Nah, I disagree. I don't think so. Again, the TVA right now as it exists outside of time. So I don't think that Sylvie was the impetus for the creation of the TVA. I don't think so. But again, just because I don't think so, that doesn't mean that's not the case. It's an interesting thought. I'm going to lean no on that, but let's keep our eyes on the show and see what they say. All right, next up. Daniel Feliciano, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Daniel. Forgive me if I'm not. Just as the army of Loki started losing ground at the Battle of the TVA, a voice can be heard which says, look to my coming on the first light of the 5th day. At dawn, look to the east. Of course, great line from Gandalf the White. When the sun at dawn, look to the east. God, don't even get me started on Lord of the Rings. Don't sidetrack me. Damn it, Daniel. I have a hard enough time keeping a single train of thought as it is. Don't get me sidetracked on Lord of the Rings. We'll fucking go we'll go all over the place. Oh, God, imagine a Gandalf appearance in this. All right, Marie Seafring writes, John, the most urgent question to be answered tonight. Do Gator Loki and Spider-Ham share a cinematic universe? I mean, Croaky? I think somebody was referring to that like crocodile or alligator Loki as Croaky. I love that. Now, it's funny because in the little images that we've seen about tonight's episode, I haven't seen any images of Croaky or that other variant that had the hammer. So, I mean, I'm sure they're in the episode. It's just funny that they weren't in the promo images that I saw, but we'll see. But man, I would love it if John Delaney doing the voice of Spider-Ham shows up. Says, hello, Loki. Can you float through the air when you smell a delicious pie? I mean, I would die to hear that. I would die to hear that. All right, next up. Daniel also writes, just then, our Loki looks into the distance to see Mobius. He yells, wow. Just then, an army of Mobiuses comes charging from behind, Rohirrim style, riding jet skis with battle cries of wow, battle over. Well, I'll tell you what, man. I am with the Loki show, I'm almost at a point where almost anything, like, the MCU has not been a place where the utterly most ridiculous things can happen. But Loki seems to be, if there's ever been a show, movie, or property in the MCU that could do something as ridiculous as that, it's probably the Loki show. So let's keep our eyes. Look to the east, Daniel. Look to the east. Al Renshaw writes, hey, John, I don't know if you've seen, have you seen reported leaks, which I don't believe, about Mobius driving a station wagon towards a Sphinx? This would be a nod to Nathaniel Richards, who becomes Kang. Thoughts? Again, I don't buy. About 1 out of every 100 leaks end up being true. So if you spend time worrying about them or talking about them, it means 99% of the time you're talking about something that isn't actually real and doesn't happen anyway. And for the 1% of the times that it is real, you might as well wait till it happens to talk about it. So I'm like I said, Al, you mentioned yourself, I don't even believe it. I don't buy into it. There's a 1% chance it could be real. And if it is, we can talk about it then. All right. Thanks for sharing that, Al. Next up, Ismael Montoya writes, come on, John, share with us the inside scoop. You know about Loki, Mobius returning, Ms. Minutes not returning. No, I really don't. This is one of those situations where Like, I did see the first 2 episodes weeks before they came out. Yes. But honestly, when I see something in advance, or I see something early, or if I know something early, I won't necessarily tell you what it is I know, but I will let you know that I know something. That's saying knows a lot of times. But at any rate, so yeah, no, honestly, I don't know anything. The one thing I will share is that I had heard, which may not be completely true because of who told me, and I won't say who told me, but I had heard, once I saw the first 2 episodes of Loki, that those 2 episodes, I was talking to somebody about Ms. Minutes, who again is right there looking at me so suspiciously. And I was told that those 2 episodes were the only episodes that Ms. Minutes appears in. Now, I don't know, like, this wasn't Kevin Feige that told me this, so I don't know 100% for sure that that's true. But in the subsequent episodes that have happened, episodes 3 and episodes 4, we have not seen Ms. Minutes, so it's holding true so far. But honestly, that's the most I know about anything. Because I'm not a scooper, so I don't get on the phone and call people and pester them to tell me things and tell me details. I'd rather just find out like everybody else. But yeah, the Ms. Minutes thing, I'm feeling more and more confident that we're probably not going to see Ms. Minutes again. I hope we do, because I love that character. All right, next up. We've got Jacob Hirsch writes, John, game day. I don't think Kang is behind the TVA. From a narrative standpoint, it doesn't make sense to replace 3 blue aliens with another one. Well, not necessarily. That's not necessarily true. Like, whenever there's a mastermind behind a human plot saying, it doesn't make sense that those humans weren't the real ones and it's just another human who's behind it, why not? Why not? Now, again, I'm not saying it is Kang. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it is, but I totally believe it's a valid theory. I'm even leaning more towards it's another Loki variant right now, or a third option, but I think Kang is absolutely on the table. I think it is completely on the table. Now, whether it turns out to be that or another Loki, we'll have to wait and see, but I don't believe there's anything wrong with, like, whoa, wait, Kang also has blue skin. I don't think that, disqualifies him from being a legitimate option, but we'll see, Jacob, we'll see. All right, next up, we've got Crashing Coyote, who writes, in the Loki Cheers promotion on Marvel's YouTube, I did not see it. In the Loki Cheers promo on Marvel's YouTube channel, at 2-second mark, we see a shot of Mobius we haven't seen yet. But is it a new Mobius or the pruned one? Again, I have not seen that. I'm sure it's real. I'm sure it exists. I haven't seen it myself, so I can't possibly comment. But I have a feeling that we are going to see multiple Mobiuses. Because remember, I said from the earlier episodes, I don't think this is the only Mobius. I think the rings on the table Ravonna was complaining about when she says, those are from you, and Mobius didn't remember it. I think it's because it was a previous Mobius that did it. The pen, I think that came from a previous Mobius. The snow globe, I think that came from a previous Mobius. So I think it stands to reason, or I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. I'm just saying I think it's reasonable to think that maybe there's a chance we are going to see multiple Mobiuses. I actually think we are, so we'll see. All right, Crashing Coyote also writes, can't wait to see Levatin and Loki. I'll be honest with you, I don't recognize the name. It's his flaming sword from Norse mythology. We see it in a promo and it looks similar to Lucifer's flaming sword. Interesting. But again, just because something works one way in the comics doesn't mean that's the same way it's going to work in the show. So don't assume that. I mean, it could be a hint towards that, but don't assume that. People still assume that something's going to happen in an MCU property because in the comics, it did this. When 8 times out of 10, Kevin Feige takes an element from the comics, but then completely changes the context of it and then brings it in, right? So we'll see. We'll see. Again, I haven't seen that promo, so we'll see how that goes. All right, Juno Faulkner writes, going to go out on a limb here and say I think Ms. Minutes is behind this. She seems suspicious. Again, I don't think we're going to see her again, so I do not think Ms. Minutes is behind it. But listen, if it turns out she is, I think that'd be pretty damn funny. All right, Al Renshaw writes, hey, John, in mid-season trailer and in teaser, we see this Navy ship. I did not watch those. I avoided them, so I don't know what goes on in those. In teaser released today, we see Loki firing soak sort of orange we see Loki firing soak sort of orange blast from its top deck. Who do you think him and Mobius could be fighting? The TVA, another faction of Loki's, Kang, Ravonna, your thoughts? Again, I didn't watch it. Here's the thing. I always watch trailers, but when I'm like 24 hours away from actually seeing the episode, and I do that for movies as well. When I'm like 24 hours away from watching a movie, I won't watch a new trailer that drops within 24 hours of it coming out. So any new promos that came out for it today or in the last 12 hours or so, I have skipped it because it's just too close to when I'm actually watching the episode. So on that, I have no idea. If they are in this pocket Loki verse, my guess is going to be other Lokis, but you never know. They might be out of that Loki pocket verse by then, and they could be fighting the TVA. Don't know. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough, though. All right, next up. Evelyn writes, all my 9-year-old kid hopes is that Alligator Loki opens the door for Peter Porker in the MCU, which now doesn't sound so crazy on him. Again, the MCU is not a place for the totally ridiculous and stupid, except for maybe Loki. It just the way they've set up this world, this could be a place where things like that could actually happen, Evelyn. All right, next up. Corey Holzer writes, just sends in a super chat badge, a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate that, man. That's very kind of you. All right, Corey then follows up and writes 1 to 2. John, I've cracked the code. The TVA prison cell loop is a painful moment again and again that the prisoner suffers. This is the same torture those in hell suffer in the show Lucifer. Lucifer is the devil. There is another devil we've been waiting for to appear in the MCU. That's right. Mephisto is pulling the strings of the TVA. Well, listen, Corey, here's the thing about that. So what we did see Mobius. Now, I know you're kidding, but we did see Mobius drop Loki to keep him contained into this time loop where he gets kneed in the sack by Lady Sif. So in the show Lucifer, hell, the definition of hell in the show Lucifer is that you get sent into a moment of time of your biggest regret. And you have to live that moment over and over and over and over and over again. Biggest regret, biggest failure, whatever. The reason that doesn't work here, because, oh my gosh, we saw New York fallen. That is Loki's biggest failure. But would it have been the biggest failure of all the Loki variants? Probably not. So even though I know you're being facetious, there's actually a crumb of something there, but I don't think they're going to do it because of that. Anyway, that's just kind of my guess again. All right, next up. Thanks for that, Corey. I appreciate that. Next up, we've got Crashing Coyote who writes, FYI, Tara Strong said we will see Ms. Minutes again. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Again, I was told the first 2 episodes were it, but I didn't know whether to believe that or not. It's just that since I was told that, we haven't seen her in more episodes, so maybe we will. All right, Marie Seifring writes, who super chats in like $20. Thank you, Marie, for supporting our channel on that level. Appreciate you. I like 2 literary inspirations I see in the Loki series. Paradise Lost, my wife Anne was bringing that up before. It is better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven. Loki is moving beyond this perspective, and the TVA posters and such have a brooding 1984 vibe. They totally do. Yeah, I heard some other people online mentioning that when you look at the posters, it was almost like very much the Big Brother is watching you 1984 vibe. That was totally there. Absolutely. Now, whether that means we're going to get more like 1984 thematic items and issues being brought into the show, which they kind of have a little bit already, Marie, when you really think about it, I suppose, which is why I guess you brought it up. We'll have to wait and see, but I wouldn't be surprised. Because you're right about Paradise Lost, but honestly, 1984 is the bigger vibe I'm getting about the TVA. So we'll see where they go with that. Thank you again for that, Maria. I appreciate that. Let's see. Next up, Alan Schroeder writes, Loki said in episode 2 he could push Hulk off the bridge without any effect taking place. But would that cause a Nexus event? I feel this logic is semi-flawed. Well, yes. I mean, technically speaking, if Hulk was not supposed to be pushed off the Rainbow Bridge, and then he did, that would be a Nexus event. As far as my limited understanding of how they've explained it in the show so far, I believe that, yes, that would be, in and of itself, a Nexus event. So I think you're right about that, Alan. All right, Marie Seifring also writes again, one thing I am curious about Why doesn't the TVA kill the Lokis? What is the advantage of only exiling them? Thanks. See, that to me is one of the million-dollar questions here. If pruning doesn't mean just killing them, why not just kill them? Is it a moral thing? Is maybe the TVA actually not all that bad? They don't believe in killing, so they just imprison them somewhere instead of literally eradicating them from existence and dropping them in some sort of pocket verse that's outside of time so it can't affect the sacred timeline. I mean, I don't know. But you're right. If they want to get rid of Mobius, why don't they just kill Mobius? If they want to get rid of Loki, why don't they just kill Loki? So I am very, very curious to see what, if any, ramifications there are about the fact that they prune them and not kill them. I'm very, very curious to see where that goes. Because if they're just straight up evil, you'd think they would just kill them. So again, maybe it's nothing. Probably it's nothing. But that did get my curiosity as well, Marie. All right, Dominic Martinez writes, "Hey, John. I've been thinking this one behind everything will be the one who remains." See, a few people have mentioned that. To me, it's way too out in left field. I don't think this is going to be that. In the comics, he is the last TVA agent and the one who created, is that one of three? Yes. The Timekeepers. I believe the show could take that idea and combine it with the Loki variant we've been following. This can give us an older Loki that went without love, making sure his younger self can be with Sylvie. What are your thoughts? See, this reminds me a lot. I'll be honest with you. This reminds me a lot, Dominic, of when we were watching WandaVision, and a lot of people started throwing out like these really big, wild theories of these almost celestial type characters that would just come in at the last episode. And what I said during that was, that's not what the show's about. That's way too out in left field. That would be like a sudden random character to just suddenly drop in when really it wouldn't have made sense or tied in with the narrative flow of the show so far, like at all. And sure enough, they didn't. I think Kevin Feige wants to keep everything pretty tightly on track. And I don't know if characters like that or others that people have mentioned, especially with just 2 episodes left to go, I don't see it happening. Now, listen. In every movie and TV show, we all have things we don't see happening that eventually do happen. And maybe that's the case here. But to me, again, I think it's just, it would just be so random and out of nowhere. And it would feel like it was, to me, unless they do it and they do it really well, it would feel like it's just being shoehorned in. So I'm going to guess no. But with Kevin Feige in this MCU, man, never say never. So let's keep our eyes on him. You might be onto something, Dominic. I don't think so, but it wouldn't be the first time I'd be wrong about something like this. So let's see what happens. All right. Next up, we've got Moon Willow, who writes, "Over under 10% we get into the Spider-Verse style Loki variant intro." Okay, let's go over this one more time. "I am Loki of Asgard, born of Frigga, not the Frost Giants. And I aspired to be a painter of Asgard, but that was a variance, and now I'm here." And then another, "I am Loki of Asgard. I was born on Jotunheim to the Frost Giants, and I found my way here, but I aspired to be a famous cyclist." And I don't know. I'm going to go under 10%. I don't think they will. But we are going to get a lot of Lokis tonight. We are going to get a lot of Lokis tonight. That's for sure. All right. Thanks for that, Moon Willow. Tim Platt writes, "Thanks to the holiday weekend, I completely forgot that today was Tuesday, not Monday. Thanks for the reminder on today's show. Game day." That's right. I know it can slip your mind. It's funny because, Robert Meyer Burnett and I were talking before the show started. I said, "Now, Robert, remember, Loki's tonight, man." And he's like, "Oh shit, that's right. Like, can't forget." I'm still not used to the new shows coming out on Tuesday nights, Wednesday for some of you guys, as opposed to Thursday nights or Friday. I'm still expecting it to be that, but whatever. I'm starting to get used to it. It's just taking me a little bit of time. Be patient with me. All right. Next up, we got Fanblaze71 who writes, "Hey, John, 2 things I always wondered with the new MCU content is, what will the pitch meeting look like, and where Stan Lee would have had his cameo? Where would you have had his cameo if he was still here?" I mean, I think it's obvious. If the great Stan Lee, who is now with the Watchers, if the great Stan Lee was with us and they did his cameo, I don't think there's any doubt. Like, does anybody disagree that Stan Lee's cameo would have been as one of those timekeepers saying, "You variant, blah, blah, blah." And then his head gets cut off and rolls through the floor. I have no doubt that Stan Lee would have been one of those guys, just in there for a quick appearance, says one great line, and then disappears. By the way, can I just say that I think to this day, the greatest Stan Lee cameo is still in Deadpool, where he plays the ultimate character that he could possibly play, a strip club DJ, in which he says the immortal words, "You can't buy love, but you can rent it for $20 a song." Greatest line ever, ladies and gentlemen. Greatest line ever. Yes, even better than Tony Stank. That is a better line than the Tony Stank line, at least to me. Anyway, great question, Fanblaze. I love it. All right, next up. Where are we going next here? Next, we are going to Joe Byram, who writes, "All right, all my money on Ms. Minutes is the big bad." A lot of people buying into the Ms. Minutes thing. Again, I don't see that happening, but man, there's a lot of people smarter than me starting to think that, so we'll see, Joe. All right, next up, we got A-Rod 2006, who writes, "WandaVision showed Wanda become Scarlet Witch. Falcon and Winter Soldier showed Sam becoming Captain America. Loki will show Loki becoming... What do you think?" Ooh, that's a good question. You know, here's my thought. Here's my thought on this. What we are seeing is a more rapid character progression. Because remember, this is the Loki. Our starting point with this Loki is at the end of the first Avengers movie. Now, in our normal timeline, we have seen Loki since that time go through an evolution and a progression to the point that he and his brother make amends, and that he even sacrifices his own life trying to save his brother Thor. Something that never would have happened before. What I think we're seeing in this Loki is that exact same Loki, but he's being put into circumstances now that are hastening that progression. We're going to see what took the sacred timeline version of Loki several movies and several years to get to. I think we're going to see these other events force that evolution in him more quickly. And I think we're seeing it happen. I mean, even just when Mobius comes to get him out of the time loop, he says, you know, blah, blah, blah. And Loki says, "How about from a friend?" You know, we're already seeing that evolution. I think we are seeing the birth of the hero Loki. Now, I'm not willing to put money on that. I'm absolutely not willing to put money on that. But if you're asking me my guess is, whereas WandaVision, we saw the birth of the Scarlet Witch. In Falcon the Winter Soldier, we saw Sam take up the mantle for Steve. And I think right now, my belief at the moment, I may totally change my mind after tonight's episode, but right now, I think we are seeing the birth of the hero Loki. And if that's true, even though he's not supposed to be in Thor Love and Thunder, God, I'd love to see him in Thor Love and Thunder. I'd love to see that reunion with him and Thor. But that might have to come later. Anyway, okay, next up. We go to Rhett Proctor, who writes, "Loki is the best MCU content, but Netflix is king of streaming with the success of Cobra Kai, which I'm a huge fan, and expanding the Miyagi-verse." I'm not going to lie to you. I think Cobra Kai is terrible. And I know I'm totally alone in that. Don't get me wrong. It's not like everybody knows Cobra Kai sucks. No. I know everybody loves it. My wife loves it. Anne loves Cobra Kai. I thought it was terrible. I was really excited about Cobra Kai. I thought it was terrible. But hey, we're not here to talk about Cobra Kai. We're here to talk about Loki. All right, next up. Cam K writes, "Not only is today game day, but it is also my birthday. Happy birthday, Cam. So excited for this new episode. I'm feeling something big, possible big bad reveal." Well, listen, they're going to have to do it soon because there's only 2 episodes left. So if they're going to do a big bad reveal, I hope it's not just in the final episode. It's like, I'm the big bad fight, big bad guy dies in like 10 minutes, right? So I kind of hope we get the big bad reveal tonight. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that you're right about that, Cam. All right, James Hoffman writes, Did Ravonna know that the timekeepers were puppets? Well, we talked about that last week as well. That's a big question. I don't know. And why would puppets want to witness Loki's death in person? Maybe Ravonna wanted Loki's to kill the timekeepers. What if she has her own secret agenda? Listen, I know a lot of people have already really formed their opinions, but honestly, I have not. I don't really know what's going on with Ravonna. Now, I know almost everybody else is convinced she's absolutely a villain. There are some people who are absolutely convinced that she's not. I am still the jury's still out for me. I really don't know. I'm waiting to see. I don't know if she's just been manipulated or if she's actually one of the main people behind it, or if she's, I mean, again, I don't know. So I'm super impressed for those of you who are feeling a good, strong conviction about that, but I'm not. I just don't have a real solid sense of it one way or the other, but I'm dying to find out, and maybe we'll find out tonight. All right, next up. That was James. Next up, Marlon Big Dick Brando writes, 1 of 3. Sylvie said, as soon as that being born a woman created a big enough detour, they pruned her. What if Loki's gender didn't matter to the TVA as long as she played the right role? She didn't, so they pruned her timeline back to her birth. Yes, being born a different gender changes a lot about you, but as long as she continued to do the same evil things and lose to the heroes, they wouldn't care. Thanks, John. Bring on the filthy. Okay. I like your line of logic there, Marlon. I do. I completely like your line of logic, but here's the problem with that, though. In the Miss Minutes presentation of variants, they give us an example, a guy who shows up late to work. That one small deviation creates a nexus. That one small, seemingly insignificant event creates a nexus. If a guy's showing up a minute late for work in a sacred timeline where he actually shows up on time for work, and he doesn't, and that creates a branch that can lead to a big meltdown, then I would suggest being born female instead of male is a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal. But again, they may have other explanations for that during the show. So we'll find out. The jury's still out. We'll find out. Again, I like the way you're thinking there, Marlon. You're trying to logically follow that through. Again, it's just that one thing they said early in the show makes it seem weird, but I don't know. Maybe it's a little plot hole. I don't know. We'll see where they go with it. All right. Next up, Casey McNatt writes, do you feel, wait, am I on the right one? Yes. Casey McNatt writes, do you feel if somebody else is behind the TVA, the reveal has to happen tonight, or do you think they can save it for the finale? It's funny you asked that. I was just mentioning that. I think it needs to happen tonight. Let me rephrase. Let me change the word need to the word should. I think if there is truly a big bad behind this, which let's face it, there is, then I think they should reveal it tonight and then set up the finale. I don't think we should get into the final hour of the show and it's like, okay, now we meet the villain, now we learn the motivation, and now we have the big fight. So if you go back, you see that, Agatha was revealed before the finale, right? So I feel if they're going to do it, I feel they got to do it tonight. that doesn't mean that's what they're going to do, but that's kind of what I think they should do. All right. Thanks for that, Casey. Next up, John Nemoto writes, over under 15%. Renslayer prunes Steven Dorff. Prunes Steven Dorff in the next episode. TVA can't allow Dorff to say stupid crap on the sacred timeline. Yeah, again. And look, let me, just for anybody who missed it, let me be very, very clear. I don't mind, nor do I care, if Steven Dorff or any celebrity doesn't like comic book entertainment. All right? I don't, none of that bothered. That's fine. You can say, listen, just like I was saying, hey, I don't like Cobra Kai. I wanted to, but I don't like it. I find it to be quite bad. But I acknowledge a lot of other people like it, and that's great. My wife loves it. A lot of you guys love it. Awesome. I celebrate that. I think it's bad, and that's okay. It's just not for me. What I'm not going to say is Cobra Kai is garbage, and I'm embarrassed for anybody who likes it. You're stupid if you like it. Thanks very much, but I'll watch good stuff. You guys can watch this embarrassing garbage. I'll watch the good stuff. You see, that's a different thing altogether. Because Stephen Dorff saying, like, thanks, I'll wait for the good shit to be in. Remember, Stephen Dorff was in an Uwe Boll movie. He was in Sex Guarantees. He was in a lot of crap, okay? He was in a lot of crap. For Stephen Dorff to say, I'll wait for the good shit. Scarlett Johansson, I'm embarrassed for her. I'm embarrassed for her. Really? Two-time Academy Award nominated actress? Really? So how about Academy Award winner Sir Ben Kingsley? Are you way better than him? What about Academy Award winner Ben Affleck? Are you way better than him? What about Academy Award winner Sir Anthony Hopkins? Oh, you're just in a different league than Sir Anthony Hopkins. You're way better. Anthony Hopkins can take that embarrassing garbage. I'll wait for the good stuff. Thank you. Really? So you're that much better than Anthony Hopkins or Robert Redford? Or, by the way, Mahershala Ali, who you've worked with, Mahershala Ali, two-time Academy Award winner, Mahershala Ali, is going to be in Blade. Are you embarrassed for him? You can tell him he's a joke and that you're so much better than him. And that's the part. And the fact, the implication that we as fans of this material must be stupid. He's embarrassed for us that we would like this content. You go, tisk, I'm so much better than you because I know that this is garbage and you don't. It's embarrassing for you guys. So embarrassing for you guys. Anyway, again, I don't care if a celebrity says, you know what? I don't like comic book movies. I don't think they're very good. And so they're not for me. I don't want to appear in them myself because I personally don't think they're very good. I have no problem with that. That's fine. That's subjectivity. No problem with that. Great. You do you. You let everybody else do what they want to do. All good. But when you start using the language that he used, throwing around terms like garbage and that you're embarrassed for people doing things like that and that I'll work with the next Stanley Kubrick. Dude, you were in an Uwe Boll movie. You need to shut the fuck up. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting all round up. Listen, I get very upset. You got to understand. I make my living on the wonderfulness of my fellow fan community. I love the fan community. I love being a part of it. I love sometimes being one of the voice pieces of it. At sometimes I get to do that, which is an incredible honor and privilege. I learn from the fan community. I benefit from being a part of it. And then when some asshole comes out and just so slams the fan community and everybody else who makes this content, and I'll say this, when he comes out and decides to slam his betters, his vastly superior betters, it really ticks me off. It bothers me. I'm not going to lie, it bothers me. Maybe I shouldn't let it bother me so much. But yeah, it really, really bothers me. Anyway, enough of that. Let's forget about Santa Dorff and his moron mouth, and let's move on and continue talking about fun stuff that we should be embarrassed about. Apparently, this comes to us. Anyway, I will go over 15%. John Demoto, I will go over 15%. All right, next up, we got Fanblaze71 who writes, I think Sylvie will get pruned and meet up with Loki and Mobius. From a trailer, I think we see Mobius driving a van past a Sphinx where Loki is. We were just talking about that a minute ago. That somebody reported that in a leak, but I guess you're saying it's actually in one of the promo spots. Again, within 24 hours, I don't watch. So maybe it's a little throwaway nod and tip of the hat to Night at the Museum. I don't know, which Owen Wilson was also in, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, Brandon Nope writes, any relation to Leslie Nope? Anyway, hello, John. Who is the antagonist? We're going to find out. I think we're going to find out tonight. Loki variant, Kang the Conqueror, Ravonna herself, somebody else entirely. I don't know, but I think we're going to find out tonight, Brandon. All right, next up, Stephen Oliver writes, hey, John. Thanks for being awesome. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. And all the kick-ass content. Why don't the TVA agents / hunters realize that their co-workers are the variants they hunted previously and not created by the timekeepers? Well, somebody asked that exact same question during the spoiler discussion of episode 4. My best guess, and it's just a guess, is that every time a new TVA member is brought in, everybody's mind is reprogrammed. I mean, think about this. When this Mobius variant started working at the TVA, he started there implanted with a whole bunch of memories that his whole existence has been working at the TVA. And thus, anybody else in the TVA must have had their memories planted that, hey, yeah, this Mobius dude, he's been here the whole time. He's been with us the whole time. So I can only guess, and it is a pure guess. I can only guess that it is a company-wide mind reset or mind reprogramming. Again, there's still loopholes involved with that, but that's the only guess I've got right now. We'll see whether that's true or not. We'll have to wait and find out, Steven. Thanks for the question, man. Next up, Edward Takax writes, excited for tonight's episode, you and me both, and Italy is going to the finals. Forza Azzurri, Forza Italia. And man, what a game. There were like 10 minutes left and I thought it was in the bag, and then all of a sudden Spain scores and then it goes to penalties. The dude makes the one save. I mean, that's nail-biting, heart-wrenching stuff, but Forza Azzurri, man, Italy goes on to the final. All right, next up, thanks for that, Edward. Yo Pierre writes, hey, John, as much as I love Loki, there was something about WandaVision that made it feel so fresh and isolated from the rest of the MCU. I can't wait for tonight. Can you rank the 3 shows so far? Well, I can't rank Loki because the other shows we have in their completion, right? We have a completed WandaVision. We know the full picture of WandaVision. We have a completed Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We have a completed picture of that. Right now, we still don't know the total picture of Loki. Because what happens, we still have 1/3 of this show to go. We still have 2 episodes to go. And these 2 episodes can rapidly and extremely alter our perception of the show as a whole. So it's too early to try to rank Loki in that. I will say this, though. Right now, my ranking of the 2 completed shows is WandaVision is number 1 for me. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is number 2. I loved WandaVision. I really liked Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So far, I'm loving Loki. We'll see how the final 2 episodes wrap themselves up. Okay, next up. That's the wrong button. Next up, we've got Max Gomez, who writes, Loki, by far, is my favorite of the 3 Marvel shows. When they announced all 3, I was highly skeptical, but wow, I have been thoroughly impressed. All 3 have knocked it out of the park for me. Just wish they were longer. Also, theory. The guy pruned in episode 1 is a Loki. I don't know about that, because then again, wasn't he saying something about, do you know who my dad is? And if it was a Loki variant, that means his dad is Odin, which would be kind of funny. But no, I don't think it was. But listen, hands down, I said this from the beginning. The thing I was most excited about moving forward. Well, I mean, look, when you look across the spectrum, Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Hawkeye, I mean, I'm open to being sold on Hawkeye. I've never been interested in a Hawkeye show, but, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, what is it? The Iron Wars, whatever the War Machine one is going to be, the Nick Fury one, Secret Wars. I mean, there's so much good stuff coming, but Loki was right up there for me, man. Loki was absolutely right up there for me. So far it's been great. And by the way, I just noticed Max Gomez, like super chat in $100. Dude, thank you so much for that. No, man, seriously, thank you. Thank you for supporting our channel and our content on that level, man. Thank you very, very much. I'm very, very grateful, as is everybody who works with me on the channel. So thank you so much for that. Anyway, the most impressive part to me about what we've seen in these 3 series so far is how utterly unique they are from each other. It would be so easy just to make the same thing. But WandaVision is so radically different from what Loki is, and is so radically different from what Falcon and the Winter Soldier is, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier is so radically different from what Loki is. It's just so impressive, and I gotta wonder, can they keep that up? Can they keep that up with Moon Knight? Can they keep that up with Ms. Marvel? Can they keep that up with She-Hulk? Can they keep that up with Hawkeye? Can they keep that up with all these? If they do, bravo. It's pretty damn impressive. It is pretty damn impressive. So Yeah, there's that. All right. Thanks. And again, Max, thanks for supporting our channel on that level, dude. It's extremely appreciated. I'm very humbled by that. Thank you, man. All right. Next up, Thomas Murray writes, do you think there's a post-credit scene tonight? Yes. I think much like with the other shows, they wait till a certain episode, then they start showing post-credit scenes, and then there's a post-credit scene in every episode. They did that once they started showing post-credit scenes in WandaVision. They did that once they started showing post-credit scenes in Falcon Winter Soldier, and they started with Loki last week. I believe the final 2 episodes will definitely have post-credit scenes. We'll find out, but I'll be shocked if they don't. I'll be shocked if they don't. All right, Tim Platt writes, John, can you say buckle up, guys, prior to tonight's episode? Because every time you say that, something especially awesome follows. Hashtag Stephen Dorff. Yeah, I just knew I should give people a little bit of a fair warning when we started to get into the Stephen Dorff topic. So I said, buckle up. Yeah, I'll try doing that, Tim. I'll try doing that. Thanks. All right. Ben Rayner writes, hey, Ben writes in, I predict this will be the Agatha All Along episode where they give the backstory to the entire TVA via flashbacks, meaning mostly flashbacks with Loki taking a minor backseat, over under 25%. This is the case. I'm going to take way under. I think from all the stuff that I've seen prior to the last 24 hours, everything seems very Loki-centric. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think that we are going to get an explanation for what is actually going on tonight. I just don't think it's going to be 85% of the episode. I think the majority of the episode I think the majority of the episode is going to be Loki-centric. And then throughout that, they will also, maybe through the use of some flashbacks, actually set up and say, this is what's going on, which will then set up the finale and the big resolution of the conflict. So that's what I'm guessing they're going to do. We'll have to wait and see. All right, next up. Where are we? Max writes, also, what if the TVA only exists to prune Lokis? Yes, it's implied that they've pruned others, but we really haven't seen anyone else get pruned. Why else would there be so many Infinity Stones? But really, are there that many Infinity Stones? Now, remember this. If the TVA has been around for untold millennia, then pruning somebody with an Infinity Stone once every 10,000 years would add up to a bunch of Infinity Stones. So maybe yes, maybe no. Again, that would mean that the guy that they brought in front of Loki in episode 1 would also definitely have to have been a Loki, and I'm not sure that he was. But also, it wouldn't make any sense, because if everybody at the TVA were variants, and Mobius has clearly been pruned before, probably not. It's an interesting theory, Max. Let's keep our eyes on it and see where they go with that. All right, J Meister 25 writes, Stephen Dorff is embarrassed for all of us. Again, we're going to hear probably a lot of that today. All right, thanks for that, J Meister. Nick Steffel writes, 1 of 2. For as much as I think many of us would love to see Kang in the next couple of episodes, I am seriously doubting the ability for them to set up such a huge character in just 2 episodes. What does your gut tell you? Do you think it'll stay true to the title card and be another Loki, or did you have another character in mind? Listen, Nick, what I have been saying for a couple of weeks now is that I believe there are 3 equal options. Kang, a Loki variant, or the third equal option is anybody and anything else. Now remember, Darth Vader was introduced, fleshed out, and whatever in one movie of Star Wars, 1 2-hour movie. Boom. We've got an hour and a half to 2 hours of Loki left. That's plenty of time. That's plenty of time. Think of some of the greatest movies of all time. They start and end, introduce the hero, introduce the villain, introduce all the motivations, bring it through to its conclusion, all within 2 hours. Right? I don't know why today so many people in the audience thinks you can't possibly introduce and flesh out somebody in just 2 episodes. Why? That's 2 hours. That's what movies have been doing for 100 years. You could. But again, I'm not convinced it's him. I'm not convinced of it at all. But I think it is one of the 3 legitimate options here. And I am still not sure who. I do think we're going to find out tonight. But I'm just not ready to call who I think it is because I'm not really sure yet. I'm still not really sure. Okay, next up, we go to, thanks for that, Nick, by the way. Next up, Phil Corvelli writes, "Hey, John, this has nothing to do with Loki." Well, that's what we're here to talk about. I'll read it, but then we'll move on. "I recently watched Fast 9. Oh my God, this film is fucking awful. I will say this, though. It's very self-aware and how ridiculous it is. Back to Loki." I appreciate it. I agree. I think Fast 9 is awful. But hey, if the people out there, if there are people out there who really enjoy it, and that's awesome. And I'm grateful to Fast 9 because it's bringing a lot of people back to the theater, which is great. Even though I don't like the film, that is awesome. So thanks for sharing your thoughts, Phil. All right. Nomadis, I don't even know if I'm going to say, Nomadic Medusa writes, "Assuming Kang is the villain, that's a big assumption. Could he be preserving the sacred timeline to conquer time? If you removed all football teams except yours, then technically your team wins the league." I mean, theoretically, again, that's building an if on top of another if. If Kang is in there, could this be his motivation? I mean, I don't know. I really don't. Because as of right now, I honestly have no leanings towards whether it's Loki variant, Kang, or any other potential option. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Now, let's not forget, Kang is supposed to come up in Ant-Man 3. And so there's got to be some kind of continuation for there if he's in this. And we don't know that he's in this. You know, the closer we get to the end, the more I'm becoming slightly convinced that it's another Loki variant. But again, we'll find out. We'll find out. Okay, just a couple more, guys, and then we're going to hit the hour mark, and I'm going to take a short break. But let's get through a couple more here before we take our break. Cinema Reviews writes, "Something is wrong, John. Uh-oh. We're 4 episodes in, and I haven't seen a single theory that the X-Men will be introduced. Even Falcon and the Winter Soldier had a few. But on the John Campea Show this morning, you may have missed it, Cinema. On the John Campea Show this morning, somebody wrote in with the theory that the way they're going to bring in the X-Men and the mutants is that they were all variants. That they were born, and because they were mutations, they were pruned, and that something's going to happen in Loki that releases all the variants, and that's what's going to introduce mutants into the world." Now, I love that line of thinking. I totally don't think that's what's going to happen. But yes, Casinema, absolutely. People have started to wonder how this is going to bring the X-Men into the MCU. All right, next up. Thanks for writing that in, man. Next up, King Mike Todds writes, "Hey, John, love the channel. Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate that. Going to see Black Widow with my brother and my best friend. Excellent. This is the first time the MCU has me just watching because I don't anything about this TVA or Kang stuff. I guess what you're trying to say is you don't know anything about this TVA or Kang stuff. And listen, that puts you in the boat with the vast majority of the audience watching. The vast, vast majority of the audience watching this show has never heard of Kang the Conqueror. They've never heard of any of this stuff. And I think a lot of people forget that. Like, even when we were back in WandaVision, some people say, "Oh, man, it's so obvious that it's Agatha." Well, I didn't even think it was Agatha. But a lot of people saying it's so obvious it's Agatha. But you got to remember, 90% of the people watching WandaVision have never even heard of Agatha Harkness. And I think that we take that for granted a little bit. I think we take it just for granted just a little bit. All right. Last one here, guys, and then we're going to take a break. This one comes to us from Steve Rogers, who writes, "John, big fan since the beginning of the AMC days. Your show is amazing." Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. It's awfully nice when somebody wants to write in just to say something nice. I appreciate that, man, very much. Thank you. But we will take one more now, since I said we're going to take one more question. Casey McNatt writes, "Who do you think that guy is with the mustache on the poster? The poster that said, 'Did you get them all, verify through deletion?'" Oh, I remember the poster, but I barely remember who was on it. So I don't know, just a Big Brother kind of thing. I don't know. I'm doubting it had any real relevance. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I practically forgot about it, but I remember that thing, verify through deletion. That was kind of cool, but no idea. Absolutely no idea. Okay, guys, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to take a short 5-minute break. I'm going to give my chance an opportunity to stretch my legs, rest my vocal cords a bit, go refill my drink, give you a chance to run, use the bathroom, grab something to eat, talk amongst yourselves. But I'm also going to let you guys know this, that When we come back, once we come back and start up again, the first thing I'm going to do is turn off the super chat feature because I want to make sure we get through all the submissions that you guys have sent in. The only way we're going to do that is if I turn off the pipe. So if you do have another theory, thought, something you want read on the show, you've got the next 5 minutes to fire it in. Go ahead, because once we come back, then we're going to be turning that off so we can make sure we get through all of them during our remaining time here together today. Okay, so hang with me, guys. Don't go anywhere. Talk amongst yourselves, and we will be right back. All right, guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there. Now, let's get back on this thing and ride it through to sunset, shall we? Let's keep things going here. We're going to pick things up here with Never Lose Your Nerd, who just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, Never Lose Your Nerd. Appreciate that, man. Suthius writes, do you think the person behind all this is a future offspring of Loki and Sylvie? Possibly. Could this be a case of if it was always meant to happen, but certain things must start, hence getting them together? Maybe. So maybe the big bad behind everything is actually trying to do something good? That would be an interesting plot twist. It's not a villain trying to do villainous things to do this. It's somebody who's actually trying to make sure that this particular union happens that's supposed to happen. Then again, I mean, God, it's a little bit creepy when two cousins have a kid and that offspring is a little bit different. What if two versions of the exact same person have a kid together? I don't know. I'm just saying there might be some laws against that. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, Suthius. All right, but we'll see. It's an interesting theory that it could actually be a benevolent hand, like somebody trying to steer everything towards the good. Maybe that is what they do. All right, interesting thoughts, Suthius. Let's keep our eyes on it. Ben Rayner writes, Stan Lee would have been at the Renaissance Fair. Yeah, that's a good one too. I still like the idea of him being one of the robo timekeepers though. I think that would have been great. But yes, you're right. At the Renaissance Fair, that totally would have worked too. It totally would have worked, Ben. All right, next up. J Jav Dav writes, over under 50% if we will see a Thor variant and if Alligator Loki talks. Love your show, man. Thank you. P.S. Dustin KO's Connor this Saturday. I believe Dustin wins by decision. I think McGregor is going to this time. Let's face it. I love Diamond Dallas. Dustin. I love Dustin. But the thing that gave him the big upper hand in the last fight was those leg kicks, man. It was not something that Connor saw coming. He will be fully prepared for that. Now, I still think Poirier wins the fight, but I think he wins it by decision. So we'll see. It's going to be a great fight either way. An under percent, we see a Thor variant. I'm going to go under 50% on that. Not 0%, but 50%. I'm going to take the slightly under that. That's my guess at any rate. All right, next up. Tim Platt writes, I was over my uncle's house for the 4th. He was showing us his garden. When he mentioned pruning, he said that when he picks a berry from a batch, he prunes it so that the branch can produce a new berry. Maybe variants are pruned but not killed in order to produce another variant or another version. Damn, Tim, your uncle kind of smart. That's actually because maybe the word pruning is very purposefully being used that way. Maybe. It's not that we're burning them, we're pruning them. That's interesting. I like what your uncle has to say there. Let's keep our eyes on it. I actually like that theory a lot. Let's see if they go anywhere with that. All right, Skylar Hillman just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, Skylar. Ryan Holman writes in, of all the MCU shows so far, this I think is the most unique as far as the endless possibilities it can have. Chances on a second season. Oh, I mean, it's hard to say until we see the finale. Like trying to guess whether this thing gets a season 2 when we don't even know how season 1 ends is difficult. But again, ask this question again when we do our spoiler discussion after episode 6. Right now, my guess is yes, but I don't know. I don't know where you go from here, but again, we still have 2 episodes to go. Let's see how that kind of wraps itself up, Ryanland. All right, next up, Jack Master Nord writes, Stan's cameo would have been the prune guy in episode 1. Maybe. Do you know who I am? And they prune him. That would have been a good one too, Jack Master. That would have been a good one too. All right, Skylar Hillman writes, Loki is my favorite of the 3 Disney Marvel series. Looking forward to these last 2 episodes. Again, I can't say that until we've seen it finished. Like, while it's still unfinished, it's too difficult for me to say that it's my favorite or where it ranks with the other ones too, because it's an incomplete picture. I want to see the complete picture first before I try to rank them against the other 2, but I am very much enjoying it so far. All right, Never Lose Your Nerd writes, I said Ms. Minutes weeks ago, and I'm sticking to it. You and a bunch of other people never lose your nerd. I don't think so, but A lot of you guys are thinking it is. Let's see. Jody Harkavy writes, I am an avid watcher. Thank you so much, Jody. I can't always send in tips, but hey, John, remember the cat from the first episode? Come on, that cat is the big bad. Bring on the filthy. Wait, cat. Oh, I thought you meant that in slang, like the cat, like that the cat that the TVA brought in and said, don't you know my dad is? And they pruned him. But you literally mean the cat. I forgot all about that cat, actually. Maybe the cat is actually the big bad guy. We'll see, Jody. All right. Oh, by the way, I just noticed Jody tipped in like $25. Dude, thank you so much. That's unnecessary, but very, very kind of you. Thank you very much, sir. Man, I can't even remember the cat. You know what? Give me a second. Give me 1 second here. Loki cat. Let me see if I can find this thing. I'm not seeing any images of the cat from Loki. Where was the cat from Loki? Oh, is this the one? Is this the cat? Actually, that's not working at all. Let me try this again. There we go. Is that the cat? Yeah, because the cat was sitting on a desk, right? Is this the one? The cat was a flirkin. I like that. Maybe it was a flirkin. Oh, God, wouldn't that be funny? Wouldn't that be funny if we found out that cat was actually a flirkin? That would be hilarious. And everybody in the live chat, Avery, Isaac, Nick, Rocket, Bo, Ben, Philometer, as they're saying, yes, that is the cat from episode 1. I totally forgot about the cat. And I don't know why I didn't think that maybe there's a possibility that cat was a damn flirkin. Didn't even think about that, guys. See, you guys put this stuff on my radar. Now it's all I'm going to think about now for the rest of the show. Okay, let's get back to it here, shall we? Thanks for that, Jody. Appreciate it, man. Very, very much. All right, next up, Fanblaze71 writes, did you see that on the timeline order of the MCU? Let me try this again. Did you see that on the timeline order of the MCU on Disney Plus? It got put in between Endgame and WandaVision. I thought it would go after Avengers 1. I don't recall seeing that, to be honest with you, so I don't know. I mean, this does start right at the end of the first Avengers. So, I don't know. No, I did not see that. Maybe that was only a timeline showing us when it was supposed to come out, because I believe this show was supposed to come out, if I'm not mistaken, help me out in the live chat, guys, but I believe that Loki was originally supposed to come out before WandaVision. I think. I could be completely wrong about that. But maybe what you saw on that timeline was not when it actually the events happened, but this is when this was going to be the release order. Maybe? I could be dead wrong about that. Kenneth is saying Loki was supposed to be first. Jody is saying yes, it was supposed to come out before WandaVision. But Ethan is saying no. Yeah, so I don't know. It's a good question, Fanblaze. I don't have an answer to it. If you guys in the live chat have an answer, discuss. All right, next up. Power is Power writes, only my headcanon, but I don't see anyone coming for little girl Loki unless it's during the Odin sleep, TVA or otherwise. Yeah, why? If the TVA lives outside of time and reality, that Odin lives within. So if they can get her away while not in the same room with Odin, I don't really, honestly, it seems weird to say that about the Allfather, but I really don't see there being a problem with it, unfortunately. Man, I would love, listen, I have never wanted anything more than to see somebody really piss off Odin. I mean, I wanted to see that so bad. I wanted to see an Odin at full power. The guy who can just shoo away Thor as a petulant child. I've wanted to see that so bad. I wanted to see Thanos. Like, I still kind of have it in my head that the timing of Thanos making his move, and it's only in my own headcanon as well, that Thanos waited to make his move to gather the Infinity Stones and all that kind of stuff, specifically waiting for Odin to no longer be in the picture. Like, okay, Odin's not gone. Odin's gone. Odin's not here. Okay, we can make a move for the Infinity Stones now. Like, they never say that in the MCU, but in my headcanon, that's totally what I have. That's totally what I have in my own headcanon. All right. Thanks for that, Fanblaze. Or Power is Power. Appreciate that. All right. DJ writes, double Marvel for me tomorrow. Loki in the morning, then Black Widow later on. I cannot believe it's been 2 years since I saw a Marvel movie on the big screen. It's true. Now, it has been great. Having the MCU shows has been a great filler. But there's nothing like going to the movie theater and watching a Marvel film or a DC film or something like that, or a Bond film or whatever on the big screen. Now, I've already seen Black Widow, but I had to watch it on my TV because, you know, they sent me a digital screener of it. So I watched Black Widow a couple weeks ago, or about a week ago now, I guess. Anyway, but I'm going to go back to the theater. I'm going back to the theater so I can watch it on the big screen. I'm very excited about it, and I'm excited for you, DJ. I hope you have a blast, man. All right, Casey McNatt writes, I really hope we learn how Renslayer went from an agent working for the TVA, letting a variant escape, to pretty much the main judge of the TVA. Yeah, I'm curious about that too. I want to see what caused, because that ascension has something to do with the overall plot, I think. Her ascension from Minutemen to the main judge in charge, the one who goes and relays messages from the timekeepers themselves. I got a feeling that's going to have something to do with the overall story. So, and again, I think that's something we're going to find out tonight, Casey. I think that's going to be something we find out tonight. All right, Powers Power writes, Odin could have gotten the wrong runt. Oh, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, maybe instead of, you know what? Okay, time out. Maybe the problem was Odin. Maybe Odin thought he was grabbing Laufey's child, but he didn't grab Laufey. He grabbed this other kid and named this other kid Loki. Something I hadn't thought about. That's a really good theory. I don't think that that's going to be what turns out, but I love the way of thinking. I love that. All right. Jody Harkavy writes, maybe her big crime was she was looking to be a hero, not a troublemaker. Absolutely. That we've said that for a little bit now, that is one of the possibilities. I mean, if that is what is her big variance, they still got to explain why wasn't her being female variance, but they may explain that as well. But that is absolutely, Jody, completely one of the big possibilities. All right, next up, Suthius writes, Sylvie was playing by herself with no one around. When one of my kids plays by themselves, it's because I put them there after doing something bad. Perhaps Sylvie did something to Thor or someone. Could also just be that, you know, she's a princess of Asgard. She's just hanging out in her room. I don't think every single time your child is alone, it's a result of misbehavior. I'm sure there are times your kid just, you know, maybe your kid just woke up in the morning, he's hanging out in their room, right? I mean, it's an interesting theory, Suthius. It is an interesting theory. But I don't think it necessarily needs to be that way. But it's an interesting theory. Let's see where they go with that. All right. Ifran Dagman writes, and super chats in like $30. Thank you, Ifran. That's really generous of you, man. Writes, John, my man, you've inspired me big time. Tomorrow I start my first day of work at Shah Rukh Khan's company here in India. Thank you, man. Dude, listen, I don't know what that company is. I don't know what you're going to be doing, but if anything me and the other community members here say have inspired you and helped you get motivated to go out and do what you want to do, awesome. That's great news. And thank you for sharing that with us, man. That's really cool. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you do really well, my friend. Thanks for sharing that with all of us. See, everybody, your words of encouragement and things you say in the community and the chats with each other, look what it proposes. So thanks for sharing that, friend, and I hope things go great for you, my man. All right, next up, DW Dunphy writes, and super chats in like $20. Thank you, DW. Writes, one problem I have with the show, even though I like it a lot, of the 3 MCU series, we now have two are about brainwashed people held against their will. Again, I like Loki, but I hope this is the last in this concept. Okay, yes, but I will say this, though. The big difference is those are elements. But in WandaVision, that was kind of the main thing, right? That was kind of the main big deal. It was the core of the mystery. Whereas in Loki, it's not. It's a side thing. It's a side thing that leads to the bigger mystery. Like, yeah, okay, so the TVA itself was not created by the Timekeepers. They're actually variants themselves. It's a different approach. Again, it's a similar element, absolutely, but it's being used very differently. One, it was of incredible importance to the story. Here, it's not that big of an issue to the story. I mean, who knows? We'll find out with the final 2 episodes. But I'll be honest with you, man. DW, I never even thought of it. Like, I never noticed it at all, or even thought of that as a similarity until you just brought it up. So, I don't know. It's interesting. Let's see where they go with it, though. Let's see where they go with it. Thanks for bringing up that concern, man. Because it's good for us in talking about the shows to also mention the things that, and all the great hoopla about this is the stuff we love. It's also important to point out, this is the thing that's not working for me. I think that's every bit as valid to point out, and I'm glad you brought that up, DW. All right. Casey McNatt writes, last one for me tonight. All I want to know is, will the Gator talk? I don't even know if we're going to see the Gator. I honestly don't know. I hope we do. And I hope we hear it talk. I mean, that's just the kind of crazy this Loki show will do, so we'll see. All right, Lizzie J writes, Casey is the mastermind, especially having all those Infinity Stones. Mwah, just kidding. I'm still on the Kang train, fingers crossed. Again, we've heard from people today who still completely believe it's going to be Kang behind it. A bunch of people believe it's not going to be Kang. It's going to be a Loki variant. Could be another person altogether. Whichever it's going to be, I think the answer comes tonight. I really do. I think the answer to that comes tonight, and then it sets us up for the finale. All right. Oliver Freeman sends in a super chat just to be supportive. Thank you, Oliver. John Birch writes, the TVA taking people is like a Minority Report. Yeah, it kind of is. A type of thing where they take people they think could cause a nexus in the future. So we're going to get rid of you before you commit that crime. I don't know that I agree with that, because remember, they have to be a variant in order to create a Nexus event. That's what brings awareness to the TVA. Remember, it only pops up on the TVA's radar once they detect a Nexus event, right? So that's the thing that brings them their attention. They don't know that somebody might create a Nexus event. Somebody does something that's a variance from the sacred timeline, which makes them a variant and causes a Nexus event, which then causes that meter to start doing this, and that's what the TVA recognize, and then they go to address it. Now, unless there's a part of that we're missing, it doesn't seem like that could be the case. But, John, I'll tell you what, let's see if they explain that tonight, because maybe that does work into it. All right, next up, My Comic Planet writes, one of two. USS Eldridge ship shown in the preview, again, I didn't watch the preview, was part of the Philadelphia experiment where they claimed the ship was rendered invisible to enemies. So I think seeing it on the show implies that the stealth tech didn't work, that it was actually the TVA that made it disappear. Again, it's hard for me to comment. It's hard for me to comment much on something I didn't watch. But that is an interesting theory. But then again, if the TVA made it disappear, they would have just wiped it off the timeline altogether, so people wouldn't have talked about it at all. But still, interesting theory, My Comic Planet. I like how you're going into real history to bring that all in. So let's see if that's where they actually go with that. Interesting thought, man. All right, next up, Michael Bradley writes, hello, John. My theory is the TVA is a part of Hell. Sylvie is a younger version of Hela who that's interesting, who refused to help Odin, causing a time variant, and was captured. Maybe, but I mean, most of the Loki variants look like Loki. If this was a Hela thing, wouldn't she look a little bit more like Cate Blanchett? Maybe? It's an interesting. I'll be honest with you. I hadn't even considered the third Odin sibling, right? So we had Thor, we got Loki, and I hadn't even thought about Hela. That's actually. Again, I don't think that's Hela or a Hela variant, but it could be connected in some way. Because again, it's not even something I thought of. Interesting thought. All right, next up. Larry Herzog Jr. writes, while Ms. Minutes is likely not the big bad, do you think there is more to her that will be revealed? As I mentioned a little bit earlier, I don't think so. I because of what I was told, I don't think we're going to see her again. But again, I was not told by 100%, 1000% ironclad reliable source. No offense if the person is watching, but just the fact that they told me that, and then we haven't seen Ms. Minutes since, kind of leads me to believe that maybe they were right. So I'm going to guess no, Larry, but I certainly can't guarantee that we won't. All right, Jake Scrabax writes, I would love to see Mobius in an alternate hell with Wilson's characters like Hansel from Zoolander or Dignan from Bottle Rocket in the jumpsuit. I mean, yeah, listen, I would love that, but here's the thing. It reminds me a lot of the Evan Peters being brought in as the Pietro, the fake Pietro, right? We fans say that, oh, wouldn't it be cool if like they were bringing in like an imposter and they brought in like Evan Peters, right? Who was Pietro in the X-Men. Or we say, wouldn't it be cool if they actually had other Owen Wilson fictional characters like Hansel? Hansel. He's so hot right now. Hansel. I love Zoolander, by the way. I don't know if you knew this. One of my top 10 favorite comedies of all time is the first Zoolander. Anyway, Hansel. So hot right now. Hansel. We say that, but then much like the Evan Peters thing, when they reveal that's exactly what they did, they brought it in as a gimmick casting to get everybody excited. Wouldn't it be funny if it, but everybody turned on them for it and got mad about it. And while it's one thing for people to say, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if we go there and it's a bunch of other Owen Wilson fictional characters, I think it would actually just turn a lot of people off. We say it would be fun, but I think it would just probably turn a lot of people off. So I don't know. All right. Next up. Who was that? That was Jake. Next up, Jody Harkavy writes, John, my headcanon, Mobius comes and saves the day riding on a jet ski. I think he is, listen, again, remember, before going through that temp pad where Ravono's waiting for him, he says to Loki, do you trust me? So he's got something in mind. I think he's got a plan in mind, and I would love to see him riding to the rescue on a jet ski. Sainu.com writes, we believe in Loki, vote for the best Odin son. Yes, well, I mean, to me, Thor's still the best Odin son, but man, I love Loki. Love Loki so much. All right, Mary Sadeh writes, before hashtag release the senior scratchy cut, senior scratchy, remember that? Now release the Loki gator cut. There you go. Again, I love the croaky line. Somebody in one of the chats referred to the gator one as croaky. Crocodile Loki, croaky. I don't know why. I love the name croaky. I just do. I hope to see more croaky. All right. Thanks for that, Mary. Michael Bradley writes, she escaped, then realized the only way back was to destroy the TVA. Yeah, maybe. I mean, because like she is on the run, and the only way to stop having to be on the run is to bring down the thing that's chasing her, the TVA. So that does seem to be exactly what it is. They've set that up to be. All right, next up, Beth D writes, I believe Sylvie being female isn't the nexus, as we don't know what our Loki was doing. He was probably practicing his shape-shifting and also female at the time. The issue, she's a good person. Again, that is a theory a lot of people have, that the variance was in that moment that we saw that little girl playing. That in that moment, she chose that she wanted to be like the Valkyrie. She wanted to be a hero. She wanted to be a hero. And that is not what the Loki of the timeline does. Loki of the sacred timeline is a villain. Or at least acts like a villain and kind of isn't deep down. But there are a lot of people who have that theory. Again, you still have to address the gender thing. I think you still have to address the gender thing one or the other. Because if a guy showing up late to work causes a Nexus event, then being male or female, and again, they could explain that fully. And there's a million different ways they could explain it that would be very rational. But they'll have to go with that. But yeah, you're right, Beth. That could very well be it. It very well could be. All right, next up. A friend Dagman sends in another super chat, like a $25 super chat. Thank you, a friend writes, John, when I was in my film school, the teachers would tell us to get the cracked version of Final Cut Pro or Premiere Pro, but I never did that because of Schnepp and all the things piracy did to him. Good on you. Now, listen, Fran and everybody else, we are here to talk about Loki, all right? That needs to be our subject matter here today. But I will say this, bravo for not pirating. And yes, because our friend John Schnepp, he was deeply, deeply hurt. not just emotionally hurt, he was very much financially devastated by people pirating his movie. It was devastating to him. The amount of people that pirated and stole his movie. And it left him feeling really bewildered and saddened and disappointed in the fan community that he loved so much being a part of, and they stole from him. And it was really hurtful for him. So good on you, man, for not doing piracy. Bravo, sir. All right, next up. Josie Reviews writes, Stephen Dorff is Mephisto confirmed. There you go. There's the answer. All we need is the devil horns. All right, Jarvis Little writes, did you consider that the reason they didn't, why are you capitalizing the first of every word? It makes it really weird to read. Anyway, did you consider that the reason they didn't take Sylvie as a baby is because a baby can't defend themselves in court since they can't talk? That's not a bad thing, but here's the problem. Remember how they explain it in the show. Once a Nexus event is triggered, it goes to this thing, and once it redlines, it's too late. If, and this is only if her being born female was a variance, the TVA can't sit around and wait for 12 years or 11 years or 10 years to go and do anything about it to correct the timeline, because that's way too late. It would have redlined a long time ago and created a new multiversal war. So again, I like what you're saying, because you're right. It could be that they didn't take her because she couldn't defend herself, but they still would have, to protect the timeline, they still would have had to have removed her, right? Or else it just redlines. At least according to the way they've explained it so far, but we might be in store for an alternative explanation in the next 2 episodes. So let's see where they go with that, Jarvis. Thanks for sending in that thought. All right, next up. Johnny Jarko, I like that, writes, while I feel the writing on Loki has been incredibly solid, I do feel the direction's been a bit standard compared to Skoglund and Shankman's work. How do you feel? I don't disagree. And actually, I think you're absolutely right. I feel like the writing has been every bit as good as it's been on like WandaVision, whatever. But I think you're right. I feel like the direction hasn't quite been as tight or as solid as it was in those other ones. It's difficult to put your finger on why, but I completely agree. I think what you just expressed is perfect too. And again, not bad. I have no complaints about the direction, but it's not as inspired as it was in WandaVision, even though the writing's been incredibly good. So I tend to agree with you. Personally, I tend to agree. All right. Matt Bailey writes, I've been confused since episode 2. I don't think you're the only one, Matt. Loki said Sylvie hides in Doomsdays. Yes. Yet some of the days aren't. Oshkosh, 1985. Oklahoma, 1858. France, 1549. Explain. Well, no. Remember, those were traps that Sylvie was laying for the TVA. Because if she was in a doomsday scenario, they would never know she was there. And they never did know where she was until Loki came along and figured it out. Those other situations, she specifically went there so the TVA would detect a variance and they would send Minutemen there that she could ambush, murder, and take their temp pads and their temporal charges. Right? They didn't find her hiding place. She wasn't hiding in France. She wasn't hiding in Oklahoma. She wasn't hiding at the Renaissance Fair. She purposefully went there so they would find her, and she lured them into traps. Because if she was actually hiding in one of her doomsday scenarios, they would never detect her. They would never know where she was until our Loki came along and figured out the mystery. So yeah, so there you go on that. So I hope that clears that up, Matt. I hope that clears that up. All right. Tony Hurd writes, what if pruning sends a variant to another timeline and when the TVA needs a new employee, they pluck a random variant from a pruned timeline? Again, that goes against everything we understand about the TVA. They don't have alternate timelines. I believe these are pocket limbo universes outside of the timeline. So again, I don't know that for sure. We need more explanation, but that's my guess. That is my guess, Tony, going into tonight. We'll find out if I'm right or wrong about that. All right. Power is Power writes, Wanda fought a witch. Sam fought a Cap. Loki is fighting a Loki. Or at least a Loki that thinks he's in charge. Guessing. But learning these shows are more straightforward than our theories. Yeah, I mean, look, go back to other MCU stuff, right? Ant-Man fought Yellow Jacket, another shrinking villain. Iron Man, in the first Iron Man, fought Ironmonger in another Iron Man type suit. You had Cap fighting Red Skull. You have, I mean, so that is kind of their formula. Wanda had to go up against another witch. So it is kind of their formula. And so, yeah, I mean, that does kind of hint or suggest that Loki is going up another Loki variant. I mean, that's a pretty good theory there, Powers Power. It's actually a pretty good theory. All right, next up, Dawn Productions writes, theory. The TVA is actually the timeline. Sorry, let's try this again. The TVA is actually the timeline, which won the Time War. They prune variants until all the other timelines match them exactly. Genocide. I think they already got rid of the other timelines. Like, didn't they already say in the Miss thing that they've already amalgamated and they already got rid of the other timelines and everything's just now into one sacred timeline? Now, we may find out that was a lie and it's something else. Interesting thought, Dawn. Let's keep our eyes on that and see if they say anything about that in the show tonight. Interesting thought. All right. Casey McNatt writes, okay, I lied. I'm just excited for the next episode. I can't wait to see what happens. And that's all I wanted to say. Dude, I am so stoked. I am so stoked. You know what's happened in a lot of these types of shows where, like, looking at Game of Thrones or others, it's usually the second last episode of the season that all the good shit happens, right? That's where all the good shit happens. And so I'm expecting we're going to get a lot of big reveals. I think we're going to find out finally tonight who is behind everything, setting up for the big conflict in the finale. I think tonight is going to be the pivotal episode. The pivotal episode. So fingers crossed, Casey. All right. William Jones writes, how many Loki variants are managing the John Campea Show? Seriously, I would love a behind the scenes meet the staff video. Well, I mean, there's not a lot of staff. I mean, listen, I do most everything myself. However, you notice I do have some help. Robert Meyer Burnett comes on the show. He doesn't do any of the behind the scenes stuff, but he helps me out with that. Obviously we have Kimberly Kern come in now and again. She helps me with some stuff. From off and on, or I'm about to bring him back on here soon, but like fact checker Jonathan, he isn't always working with me. Like, he's actually been, I can't say who Jonathan's been working with lately. If he ever wants to share that, he can share that, but it's got to stay quiet about who he's been working with lately. It's pretty cool. But you know, Jonathan, fact checker Jonathan, works with me for a while. And then he goes and does other stuff. Then he comes back and works with me for a while. And he's about to come back too. So there's fact checker Jonathan. And I already mentioned Ray, Kimberly, Aaron Cummings obviously helps out around the show. But like, as far as the behind the scenes stuff goes, on a daily basis, it's me and Ray. Mostly me, but then Ray does a lot of the graphics work. And it's just, while I do have some great people that work with me, and that I'm able to pay and support thanks to you guys supporting our channel. It's mostly a one-guy show. It's mostly a one-man show. It's, which is challenging. It means, I mean, people wonder why I say, like, I work 12, 13, 14-hour days. It's because of that. But it's fun, and I love my life, and I love my job, and thank you for making it possible, guys. All right, next up. That was William Jones, I believe. Yes, it was. Skylar Hillman writes, John, how do we know that you are not a variant? Oh, I've never claimed that I'm not. I'm the John Campea that went. There's so many different John Campea variants. And I mean that honestly. There are so many potential John Campea variants. When I was somewhere between 18 and 20, that's back in my band playing days. And it was around 18, 19 or 20 years old that I had to sit down, set a deadline for myself, and actually decide if I wanted to pursue being a professional musician for my life. And in another timeline, John Campea pursued music full time. in our sacred timeline, this John Campea realized he wasn't good enough. And I don't say that humbly. I just mean honestly, like 99% of people, I was not good enough. I'm pretty good. I love picking up my guitar. I love playing the keyboards. I love writing songs, all that kind of stuff. But the reality was I was not good enough at that I would ever actually be able to become a successful musician, right? So there was that. There was the John working in law variant. There's an alternate timeline where John Campea is still working in law somewhere. Then even once I got into this, there's a John Campea who stayed working at AMC variant. So there's a timeline out there somewhere where John Campea didn't leave AMC and he was still working at AMC theaters. So there's that timeline out there. So there's when I actually look back on it, there's a lot, and I could list off more. There's a lot of potential John Campea variants out there on the sacred timeline. And there's the breakdancing. Yeah, Amir brings up in the live chat. There's the breakdancing. John Campea. I was a professional breakdancer. By professional, I mean we actually got paid. We danced at paid gigs, and we would go around and dance at paid gigs. And I know how a lot of you are having a very hard time believing that, and I don't blame you, but it's true. I got paid to be a breakdancer. It sounds weird, I know, but it's the truth. All right, anyway, thanks for that, Skylar. Next up, Ryan Holman writes, would love to see a Loki that could wield Mjolnir. I mean, it would be interesting, but remember that the enchantment that Odin put on Mjolnir didn't happen until he cast Thor out. Like for 1,000 years, Loki could have picked up Mjolnir. It wasn't until the events of the first Thor movie that Odin put that enchantment on it. So, I mean, he could have at any time picked up and wielded Mjolnir. Since there was no enchantment on it yet at the time, theoretically speaking, he could have done that. All right. And Noah AG just sends in a super chat to be supportive. And guys, that'll do it for the pregame show of Loki episode 5. Guys, right now what are we at? We're about 6 hours and 18 minutes. 6 hours and 18 minutes away from Loki episode 5, which is going to be the most important, the most pivotal episode so far. I am dying to see it. Thank you guys for joining me here for this. It helps me get psyched up for the episode. I hope this show helps you get psyched up for the episode. And don't forget, guys, tomorrow, well, obviously there's the John Campea Show in the morning, so we hope you come and join us for that. But also in the afternoon, 4 p.m. Los Angeles time, we will have, after we've all seen it, we will have our open spoiler discussion of Loki episode 5. I'm so excited about all the stuff we're going to have to talk about. I cannot wait to see this thing tonight. Guys, wherever you are, however you're watching, whoever you're watching with, I hope you guys are having a magnificent day, and I hope that you and your variants are all striving towards one glorious purpose. And don't forget, Santa Dorff is watching you, so make sure you be good little boys and girls, or else he's going to be very disappointed and embarrassed for all of you. Guys, that'll do it for this installment of the Loki pregame show. Thanks for joining me and helping this become a real fun event for me. I cannot wait for tonight, midnight my time. I'm going to be watching this thing. Can't wait for you guys to watch it. Can't wait to get back together again tomorrow. Anyway, that'll do it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. My name is John Campea, and until the next time, my friends, bye-bye.